Hello there, this is Red Joy, and today I'm going to give you an updated class ranking for Baldur's Gate series from the Enhanced Edition as of 2026. Now, you guys may have noticed that I've released other class rankings, and let's just say my viewpoints have changed, and I've gotten quite a few things, I would argue, a few things wrong. So, there's going to be a lot of my opinion sprinkled in there with my own flaws and foibles. I'm going to include information about each class, about my experiences with them, as well as several multi-class and dual class options, and also statistics and various capabilities that each class has regarding their combat ability, their utility, and really, really importantly, their survivability. So I've had this channel for 3 years. It was kind of the reason why I wanted to do this. And 3 years of putting out Baldur's Gate content regarding class guides, regarding favorite spells, companion guides, and hardcore, no reload playthroughs using SCS components, of which I believe I have now 24. As of recording today, I have 24 runs at this time. And let's face facts. If you're watching this video, you're looking about how your viewpoints stacked up against other videos that you've seen with their own viewpoints. And by the way, yes, I did write down my notes. I have them right up here. I'm going to be reading them because it's way better than me going, every 2 seconds. So because people hate long introductions, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. They don't want to hear explanations of the grading. I'm going to start with the lowest tier. Lowest tier are just classes that are very poorly designed, and they're going to bring about the biggest challenge if you play the game. Despite whatever water cooler stories that are told by expert adventurers, these classes are F tier because they just don't function very well for Baldur's Gate. We're going to start off with the Sun Soul Monk, which I believe is the roughest, worst designed class in the game. Anyone who has played the game knows that all of the monk kits are pretty bad. This is the worst point out of the monk classes. They lose Stunning Blow, which is really the saving grace of the monk. They replace it with a ton of fire damage, which is okay, but it's also easily resisted by a lot of enemies. Rasad has a lot of reasons for being probably the worst companion in the game, and him being a Sun Soul Monk is one of those reasons. He also is a very poorly rolled out character as far as his stats go. So it's not just his class, but Sun Soul Monks are pretty rough to play. Next are Dark Moon Monks. Dark Moon Monks get two redeeming features. One is that they can use certain illusion abilities like blindness and mirror image, and then two is they can detect illusions. Other than that, they lose Stunning Blow, and they also have all of the baggage of being a monk. So, why are monks so bad? Monks have this weird design in a lot of D&D where they get one decent thing, but then they lose out on 2 or 3 other things to help them survive or fulfill their particular role of what they're supposed to be. For example, they get certain armor class or AC bonuses, but then they lose out on wearing helmets, armor, and shields. Most importantly, helmets, because helmets protect you against critical hits, which is double damage, and it's quadruple damage if you're playing on insane difficulty, the normal version. Not like me, I'm a coward, I don't play with double damage. I should, though. They do get resistances. Monks get resistances and immunities, but nothing to really protect them against elemental damage, critical hits, I've already mentioned, level drain. They can't get diseased, and they can't be slowed. They get immunity to poison. All of that is really good, but they lose the ability to get hastened. They lose the ability to get extra attacks, except for a high level ability, which is not good compared to other high level abilities. Monks were never built for Baldur's Gate 1. When they were first introduced, they were introduced in Baldur's Gate 2. You start the game at level 7 or 8, and monks, even then, were pretty poorly designed. Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, Baldur's Gate 3, AD&D, D&D 5th Edition, all of these versions of the monk have things that are lacking that other fighter or warrior classes are better at doing. I'm one of those people who really, really wishes I could just cosplay as Superman or as Bruce Lee and zip around the battlefield and just punch a dragon into a mountain. you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to be basically at the highest level of a monk, you're going to be about as powerful as a fighter is at half of those levels. Okay, so next up is the Beastmaster Ranger. So congratulations, you've picked a class that can potentially have the highest number of hit points in the game at level 1. Good job. Unfortunately, you can't use weapons and armor that are beyond the Neolithic era. Think about that for a moment. You're using Stone Age weaponry in a game that has civilization. It's going to be really, really rough to play the game. So I get the appeal of extra castings of summoning animals, but the problem is that the animals aren't that strong. You get them at higher levels, at the levels that are higher for a ranger to cast them, but you're also not getting them, that they're already not very good spells, and by the time you really get the ability to use them, the game has far surpassed their effectiveness on the battlefield. So there's nothing really powerful about this class except that bonus to their hit points, because they can find a familiar and put their familiar in their pocket for their game, therefore they lose an inventory spot. And there are better summoners for animals. There are better summoners in general in this game. So Beastmaster Ranger is in the F tier. And the last in the F tier is the Wizard Slayer Fighter. It almost makes D tier, but it has that crippling weakness of losing out on a number of very powerful magic items and potions. Yeah, you lose certain potions if you're a Wizard Slayer. It makes this class very, very challenging to play. The bonus to magic resistance is okay, but a lot of characters can use items that grant them resistances and nice bonuses as well. The ability to disrupt arcane casters is okay, but it only works if they can hit them. At that point, you'll probably be doing enough damage that they won't be very much of a threat for long. So there are lots of abilities and spells that can be used to disrupt spellcasters anyway, and a lot of them are cast by wizards or by clerics or by druids. And also, did I mention that Wizard Slayers don't do anything against divine casters? They don't do anything against druids or shaman or clerics. They don't do anything. So it's going to be a big detail when you're facing off a character who's using Implosion or Insect Plague or the cleric version of Hold Purse, which, by the way, hits earlier than the wizard version does. Flame Strike, Call Lightning, Command Spells, Finger of Death, all of those are coming right for you. Wizard Slayers have a very, very specific role, and they lose out on just about everything else. If you want to wreck wizards, sorcerers, or bards, just play an Inquisitor. They're going to be much higher up on the list. So as a final note about the F tier classes, this is the last F tier class. It is still possible to play the game with these classes. You're just facing a really big uphill battle. If you see somebody who's making a video and they're trying out this class, appreciate what they're doing as a challenge, or maybe they're doing a modded run, or they're doing a more, maybe a mod that enhances the power of these classes, or maybe it's their first time. They really think like a Beastmaster sounds really cool, or they really want to try out a monk. If you're watching a video that's using these things, please, please, please be a good sport, comment accordingly, be kind to these players, don't be a dingus. Next up are D tier classes. These are characters and classes that have one point in the game where they're genuinely really powerful, but it usually takes a lot of work to get there and to stay there. So the first that's on this list is the Wizard Slayer to Thief dual class. Now, before going into the detail on this build, I don't think it's going to be very appropriate to put every single dual class companion build version in this video. It is an example of how dual classing can improve a really bad kit. So the key to this build is the high level ability, or HLA, of use any item that thieves will get. That gets rid of the limit on magical items while allowing for the Wizard Slayer part to basically give them the magical resistance and the disrupting of magical abilities. The key to succeeding, though, in this is that you have to get up to that high level ability threshold. So it's an interesting idea as a challenge to see if you can do it, but the real power of this comes very, very, very late in the game. I think if you're going to do this, you have to make them a ranged character. I will say, I think it can work, but it's going to be a big challenge. It's almost F tier, but I think because there's that potential that it could be kind of cool to give a try, I'm putting it in D tier. Okay, so the next I'm putting into D tier is the Archer to Cleric dual class. This is exactly the opposite of what the Wizard Slayer to Thief is. In fact, these probably should be reversed, but I'm not going to do that right now because I will say that it starts very strong. Having Grand Mastery in bows and crossbows is fantastic, and guess where the Archer is going to end up? A lot higher on this list. But then you switch to a class that doesn't get to use bows and crossbows. You do get bonuses with slings, but I'd rather take a dedicated Archer firing with Fire Tooth or the Bow of Gessin than an Archer Cleric who has maybe better divine casting, but far less Thaco and range damage. This build doesn't make much sense. Can someone maybe explain to me why it's a good spell? I understand maybe they want to get the Druid spells as well as the Cleric spells, but there's already going to be a build for that's later on. That actually utilizes both of those components well. So I just don't understand. Why would you do this over doing a Ranger Cleric multiclass? That's what I just don't understand. So this is not a good build. If you're doing it as a challenge. You're going to have a really fun early game and a really rough late game. Next is the Fighter Mage Cleric. This is the first of our triple class multi-classes. And it sounds like it would be really cool as a solo build, which I don't hate. I know a lot of people do. I know a lot of people hate the triple classes. But this is not the one you want. There's a lot of spellcasting ability that you're going to get. Better Thaco because you're a fighter. And you're going to be able to handle a lot of different situations, but you're not going to be able to handle every universal situation. Not like the other triple multi-class. The issue with all of the triple multi-classes is that you're going to be running into experience problems. It takes so long to level up in just one of these. You have to level up in each class separately in order to successfully build your class up and build your character up to get to the point where they can use each ability at each level. You're also going to be missing out on, first off, you're going to be missing out on level 9 wizard spells. So you don't get to use planetars. You have to be stuck with devas, which are okay against the undead, but not much else. You're gonna find out it falls off whenever you have to deal with traps, or you have to have a thief in your party, and that's another pull away from the experience. So I just don't think that the Fighter Mage Cleric multi-class combo, I don't think it's a very good build for folks to try out. I think you're better off doing with either just a Fighter Mage or a Fighter Cleric, and then use that third class character on the side, or have a party with all three. You could do that, and you'll have a great time. Okay, so the last D level character is the Jester. It's a Bard kit. It breaks the classification. It breaks this classification because there's no real point where they're particularly amazing. They have this gimmick. They actually have kind of two gimmicks. One gimmick is that they don't have any disadvantages. They're the one kit that will straight up say it doesn't have any disadvantages. That's because their advantage is a disadvantage in itself. Their gimmick is that they have a song, like all bards do, but their version of a song is a confusion song. It's a song where it will drive enemies confused if they fail to save. However, the problem is that enemies will get a bonus to save against the Jester's song. It's a bonus +2 against their saves. So when do Jesters get strong? They get strong when they get the enhanced Bard song as a high level ability, but then they lose the Jester song. So it makes them objectively worse Bards for absolutely nothing. They still get the spells, they still get to use any weapon, and if you roll a Bard, you're gonna get the same thing as a Jester does, except you're gonna get a better song early on through the majority of the game. Just pick a different kit. Just pick a different kit for a Bard. If you're really interested in playing a Bard, don't play the Jester. Play a different kit. Okay, so now we're at the point where you can start to see some power in these classes, and they have a particular role that's fairly functional. These are the C tier classes. You're going to be okay. You'll definitely need to pick a party to back you up, and you'll need to pick them carefully. But these classes, while they do have clear weaknesses, and they're going to have problems, they are designed to be pretty functional. The first on this list, and you're going to think it's kind of crazy to put an arcane caster this low, but the Abjurer. I think the Abjurer, and the next, by the way, spoiler alert, the next three are going to be specialist mages. The problem with these specialist mages is what they miss out on. The way specialization goes in Magic is they can get bonuses to scribe their scrolls. They get bonuses to for their spells to penetrate over an enemy's kind of saves, because the enemies will get a minus to their saves when they're trying to protect themselves against your spells. And the downside is that they miss out on the opposition spell. Yes, opposition school. So Abjurers, they lose out on transmutation spells. So that means they miss out on haste and stone skin. Those are two. Oh, and time stop. Three incredibly powerful spells. That's enough for folks to not take Abjurers. But guess who's next? Diviners. Diviners miss out on all the necromancy spells. Now here's the thing. Here's what I will give for Diviners. I think if you're sitting at your table playing AD&D in person, having a Diviner is actually kind of cool. Like, I'm sure there are spells there that are like finding hidden doors in case your thief is whiffing their rolls, or, you know, identifying items, or seeing through invisibility, or reading the future, right? I think it's actually kind of cool. I think you can make a Diviner work if you're sitting at your table. They don't work in Baldur's Gate because you get, just like the Abjurer, and I didn't mention this with the Abjurer, but they don't have any offensive spells that you save against, right? The closest that a Diviner gets is True Sight, and they're automatically going to succeed in seeing the invisible stuff. So there's no point in having any quote-unquote spell penetration to a Diviner or an Abjurer, because an Abjurer is purely protective spells. A Diviner is also spells that are just dispelling illusions. It's not good for Baldur's Gate. I will say that much. Again, tabletop, very different. Also, Baldur's Gate 3, I hear that both of them are quite good, and that's 5th edition. AD&D, probably at your table, they're both okay. For Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, pick a different one. Otherwise, or play as a challenge. And then finally, Transmuter. All the same reasons why a Transmuter, or why an Abjurer has a problem, Transmuters have the same problem, because they do get some good offensive spells like Slow. That's a really good offensive spell. Disintegrate, Flesh to Stone. I don't like using them because they destroy items, and that's not good. But they lose protection from magical weapons, because that's an abjuration spell. Protection from energy, abjuration spell. Spell shield, abjuration spell. A ton of things that are... Oh, by the way, all of the dispelling magics, like breach, abjuration spell. Spell thrust, abjuration spell. Ruby ray of reversal, abjuration spell. All of those put them at big risk against other wizards. So, you know, Transmuters, maybe they sound really cool. Altering reality. You're sitting at your table. That might be fun. Casting haste, having a little easier to cast haste. Okay, but every other wizard can also cast haste too, except for Abjurers. So you're going to have a really, really rough time if you're playing as one of these three. You might want to do it as a challenge, though. Final bit I'll say about these three and any other mages or arcane casters, even the Jester, I'll say this much, is that having access to arcane magic is very, very, very powerful. So the fact that I'm ranking them this low, they could be potentially lower if you're not a big fan of using arcane magic, but arcane magic is a big, big, big changer to your gameplay. So consider that for when you decide to play. Okay, so this is not intended to be a big modding list video. One thing I will say is I've talked about monks. I've talked about how bad they are. If you saw my monk my latest monk character creation guide, you know that I am a very big fan of the Artisan Kit Pack Monk. This puts it at C tier. It will do things that will actually make them somewhat decent. They're still not going to be at the same level as being a fighter, but they will eventually get an immunity to critical hits. It comes later, but they eventually get that. They will eventually get a flurry of blows. Actually, it comes fairly early. Flurry of blows comes fairly early. It's basically trading one attack. You get an additional attack per round at minus Thaco. You still get the same stunning blow. You still get a lot of the same abilities. You have a different scale for your fist damage. You do get a bonus to saving throws, and you get your AC that's proportional not only to dexterity, which is standard, but also to wisdom, which is closer to the tabletop. So I consider this to be a very big improvement to the monk. Does it make the monk incredible? Does it make it this late game powerhouse that some people on forums will say they are? No, but it makes them playable. I'm going to put it in the description below where you can find this mod. It's good. There's a lot of other mods that they do for various kits and created kits. I just think that this is really a good example of a mod that does it right and treats it right and doesn't overpower it. So you're still going to have a little bit of a challenge if you play the Artisan's Kit Pack Monk, but it's decent. Okay, I know the reason why the Ranger is low, because there's no good design for a Ranger. There isn't a good design in Ranger for Baldur's Gate, there's not a good design in Ranger for AD&D, and there's not a good design for a Ranger in D&D 5th edition or Baldur's Gate 3. The reason why is a matter of scale. Quick question. Who is the most famous Ranger in literature? You probably thought of a couple different guys. You probably thought of Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. Maybe you thought of Robin Hood. Maybe you thought of any generic woodsman who goes in the wilds and protects the peasants. Simple. Here's a question for you. How many dragons does Aragorn go toe-to-toe with? Like solo toe-to-toe with? Gandalf went toe-to-toe with a Balrog. It's pretty close. That one dude shot a dragon using a big ballista, but I'd argue he's more of a fighter than a ranger. We forget that rangers are not meant to be I'm going to go to an extra plane and fight against a horde of demons. That's not the purpose of a ranger. A ranger is supposed to be low scale, go out in the woods, fight the bad guys, come home to a nice cabin in the woods with their lovely village and just smiling and being the hero, the local hero of the town. That's the point of the Ranger. So Rangers being part of a game that regularly sends you to extraplanar dimensions to fight against insanely powerful wizards or demons or dragons or beholders or whatever is going to be a very, very rough time in no matter what system you're playing as. So is it fair to Rangers? I mean, I guess not, but look at what they do get. They get bonuses they get a free two points in 2-weapon fighting. I don't know why, but they get that. They get druid spells. I mean, that's okay. They come a bit late, and you really only get one or two spells that are viable, because you only get levels 1, 2, and 3 that are really viable. I just think that Rangers are very, very tough to play in Baldur's Gate 1, but it is possible. And I think you need to think of them less as being heroes or superheroes and just think of them as the cleanup guys that come in at the end of the battle, right? Remember, like Avengers, they had the 6 Avengers and they're staring down Loki, and Loki's like, oh, I guess I could use that drink, right? Then you had the shield guys come in. You're one of the shield guys coming in to clean up the mess, okay? Hail Hydra. Rangers are tough to play. Good luck if you want to play as one. By the way, their kits, there are the 2 kits besides the Beastmaster. They're going to be up on this list. Keep your eyes open. Next up is the Enchanter. The Enchanter is the 4th Specialist Mage on C tier. It's kind of crazy considering how I've praised the C tier, or praised Arcane Casters C tier, again, it's not terrible. You're not talking about terrible classes, but you are talking about classes that are a bit of a challenge but can be viable. So am I crazy in putting enchanters here? I'm crazy, but I do have a point in putting them here. Now, there's good news, is that there's a lot of very powerful enchantment spells that have opposing saving throws. Sleep, chaos, and charm spells, all very, very powerful. But the bad news is there's no enchantment spells after level 5. Now, this point's been brought up. I will say, the enchantment spells you get at level 5 are pretty good. Chaos. Chaos is pretty good. I've had parties wipe out at level 16, 17, 18 due to a faulty spell of chaos where everybody gets hit. Everybody gets hit, and they're running around like, counting the stars on the ceiling, or tying their shoes, or attacking their bus buddy. I've had entire parties wipe out because they got hit with a really bad chaos spell. It happens. And that was not even with an enchanter. That was against Irenicus. Or, I guess it was Irenicus's clone of Herr Delis who cast it. Regardless, it wasn't a fun time. But it was kind of like, okay, well, you gotta deal with it. Enchanter makes that a little easier. Now, losing Evocation is really, really rough. But let's think about it this way. Evocation does a lot of raw damage. So does Necromancy spells. So do Conjuration spells. So do Alteration spells. You have other options for doing that raw damage. I would say the other thing that they could possibly miss out on are the Sequencer and Contingency spells. But I think that's the reason why they are two separate. They are two separate schools. They're both Evocation and Conjuration. So I don't think you actually miss out on those. I would say that Chaos still kicks opponents in the teeth, and that's the reason why they're well above Transmuters, well above Diviners and Abjurers. You can have a fun time as an enchanter. Zan, I'd say, is the biggest person on my Baldur's Gate companion list that I get the most notes on of him being super powerful. I think he's super powerful because he's an enchanter, not because of all the other crap that he gets. So I think he's okay. I think enchanters are okay. I still put them at this point because I would want to see enchantment spells past level 5, of which I think there are in other games. There are enchantment spells past level 5. So I don't know why there aren't any in Baldur's Gate, but there you go. And finally, to end the C tier is dual classing any character into fighter. Dual classing, I think, is really good. I think it's better than multi-classing in many situations, but I think that dual classing into a fighter is a big mistake. Because fighters have a lot of potential at the early part of the game, and they can do a lot. Once you get up to level 9 and 10 and 13, whatever, you get a lot of the things that you need out of a fighter class. But then they start to fall off, and they fall off hard. Sure, you get critical strike, you get hardiness, you get a lot of hit points, you get that grand mastery, probably in maybe 1 or 2 weapons. But you're also going to be dealing with issues of limited HLAs, which I just mentioned the 2 that are really good, and you're also going to be outclassed by a lot of other classes. Fighters are good, they're going to end up really high, but you're dual classing into them, and what are you getting in return? You're getting in return a level 9 thief, a level 9 mage, or a level 9 cleric that had some sort of unique maybe perspective. Maybe they were a bounty hunter, maybe they were an enchanter, maybe they were an illusionist, and now you're dual classing them into becoming a fighter. I don't think you were probably better off sticking with that original class because you're getting more from that class leveling all the way up to 20, 25, 30 than you are having your fighter level up to 20, 25, 30 if you're playing with limit breakers on your XP. I think dual classing into fighter, you can do it, and there are builds that make it work. I think it's a little limiting. But I put it in C tier. I put it at the top of C tier because it is viable. Okay, so now the B tier of classes are classes that things are getting good. You could potentially solo the game with some of these classes. Some of them you can't, and I'll explain why. You're giving really, 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 really good benefits to your party that you want to recruit characters who are in this in order to ensure your success on particular quests or particular parts of the game. These aren't the strongest classes, kits, or combos in the game, but they can function with one or two really good talents or tricks that make them pretty good. Not universally good, but pretty good. And the first on this list are the basic bards. So some idiots, mostly me, had some preconception is the right word, that they can be solo characters. No, bards cannot be solo characters. For all of their versatility, no bard kit really does a good job of playing the game solo. The whole point is to play the game with a group. They are meant to enhance a group. You can play the early part of the game solo, particularly the early part of Baldur's Gate 2 solo, because you just need invisibility and you need a way to pick pockets, which a bard can do both of those things. But a bard is going to have a really rough time with combat. The bard's going to have a really rough time with casting spells at the same level as a mage. That being said, they can boost parties very nicely with their song. They can use wands. They can cast spells up to level 6. They can do what you need for a party to be successful. I will say, though, that if you're going to play a bard, don't play a jester. And I would play one of the other two kits. You just get so much more from the other two kits than you do with a bard. That being said, if you're really insistent on just not playing with any kits whatsoever, just playing the basic class first, you'll need to play a particular way, but you can't go wrong with playing as a bard. Actually, you could go wrong playing as bard. Follow my advice. What I said in some video I made a while back, where I said you could solo. You can't solo as a bard. What you can do is you can cast spells at a higher level than, I mean higher character level than a mage can, but that only gets you so far. That being said, they're still viable. They still do a good job. The next is the second triple class, the second of two triple classes, the Fighter, Mage, Thief multiclass. So this is a big step from the other triple class. Big weakness, no level 9 spells for mages. That sucks. However, if you can cast Stone Skin, Mirror Image, Protection from Magic Weapons on a sequencer, then cast Invisibility over and over again to get that ×5 multiplier every time you backstab, occasionally using Critical Strike, using a weapon like Celestial Fury or the Answerer, that's not that bad, right? Toss in a Fireball or a Skull Trap or something that's, Horde Wilting, you can cast level 8 spells. This multiclass can let your character solo. You pretty much will be relegated to solo play because you're not going to be able to have a party and actually level up your character. But you could potentially play this game. I put it in B tier. It could go higher, it could go lower, based on how your expectations are as to what you want to do with the game. Do you want to experience every little detail of the game and you don't mind maybe playing on a lighter difficulty to make the combat a little easier, but a difficulty that lets you go through dungeons and cast spells and fight as you need to? Fighter, Mage, Thief, pretty good. However, if you want to level up insanely fast and get a lot per level, you basically go with the Basic Thief. Basic Thieves are the simplest of the bunch. They get no extra frills, no special abilities. They can pick locks, they can find traps, they can pick pockets, they can rob stores, they can set traps, they can go into stealth, they can find illusions, they can backstab. Eventually, you're going to get use any item that lets you use any item. You can set beggar traps that let you take out opponents before they spring up. Now, I had someone comment on a video that I did where they said that, I'm going to try to kind of paraphrase, everything that a thief can do, you can do with other classes. You can use a barbarian to bash a lock, you can use a mage to cast Skull Trap, a cleric to use Find Traps, a bard to use Pickpockets, or an inquisitor to use True Sight. All of that is technically true. So I would still argue that a basic thief or a thief, one of the thief kits, is going to be more useful than that, because they can do all of those things on one character, and they can do them over and over and over and over again, except for set traps, which even then, you only really need a few traps to dominate, to sharply change a battle. You don't need a huge amount. So they are able to solo parts of the game, not all of the game, but parts of the game. You can go in, pick all the traps, maybe take out a kobold or two, and you can do certain things with a thief until you need your party. Every group needs some variance of thief, and the basic thief is basic, but it does get the job done. So the next two are dual classing two thieves. The first one I'll put up is a cleric two thief dual class. They will level up quickly and then get back those cleric spells. More importantly, they will get the use of wearing helmets. There's a mod I play with called Rogue Rebalancing that gives you hoods that you can wear, or special stones that you can wear on your thief to protect their head. Most of the game does not have those. So unless you're playing with that mod in particular, you're going to be playing with thieves not being able to protect against critical hits. So dual classing from a cleric to a thief, you get that benefit. You also get the benefit of certain utility-based spells. The downside is that you have limited weapon selection. You're pretty much stuck with clubs and quarterstaves and slings. Right, you can use slings, but staves and clubs for the backstab damage, which is kind of weird to do. I guess you're just clubbing on the back of the head like a baby seal. And I find that divine spells are not quite as useful at offensive ability as mage spells, as arcane spells. With that said, if I have a thief withdraw upon Holy Might, and they're going in and out of stealth, and then backstabbing with a staff or a club, there are far worse things. Far worse things. You could be like a monk without any backstab, trying to punch their way to do something. It could be that. So cleric dual classing to thief, and you get all the utility of a thief. So you're not going that wrong by doing this. I'm also going to say something very similar to a mage dual class to thief. They level up quickly, get back those mage spells. They get to keep their weapons, right? Their weapon proficiencies like bows, crossbows, and swords. That's nice. The downside is you are going to be dealing with fewer HP. Cleric to thief, you may get a little boost to your HP and now you are a thief who's using blunt weapons. Well, by the way, blunt weapons aren't all bad, right? Clubs can do wonders against skeletons. Quarterstaves can do wonders against, skeletons. And by the way, there are other enemies in the game that only take damage from blunt weapons. So you're not that bad off if you're using a blunt weapon. Mage dual class to thief, you get the benefit of the weapons that you could use. You could use blunt weapons, or you could use daggers and swords and whatever. The downside, you're getting fewer HP. I mentioned that. You also you get a ton of utility. Imagine now you have a thief who, if they whiff that hit to get their backstab, they can step back, cast invisibility. Ideally, you'll use Robe of Vecna to make sure you cast it like that, and then pop around and stab him in the back again, or get out of combat, because you might need to get out of combat, or buff yourself with haste, stone skin, mirror image, depending on what level that you switch over. You're gonna be dealing with that kind of level of utility in and out of combat, and you'll lose out on some spell casting potential. And that's the downside to dual classing away from a casting class, is the casting powers get so insanely powerful. Definitely for mages, also for clerics to some degree too, that when you dual class away from those, you're missing out on those things, right? Dual classing to a thief is far better than dual classing to a fighter, but you're still missing out on those high level spells that can really alter the game. So that's the reason why I have them here. They can work, and you will do very well through most of the game with it, but you are missing out on the high level spells. Okay guys, you ready to hate me? Because I'm about to put the first thief kit on here that is gonna probably piss some people off. I'm putting the assassin here. The assassin, if you had actually told me that you wanted that you put the assassin lower than the basic thief, I wouldn't have really batted an eyelash, because you lose utility with the assassin. Assassins lose 10 points, 10 skill points per level, but they do get a small tiny bonus to THAC0 and to damage, and they get to extend their backstab multiplier to ×7 rather than ×5. Okay, that's good. That's really, really, really good. Give every invisibility potion to your assassin, and they will do that like stab damage left and right. It sounds great. The problem is if you have an assassin, their one thing is assassinating. They're killing. They're stabbing in the back. They're using stealth. They can't put many points into picking locks, into picking pockets, finding traps, or setting traps. They only get 15 points per level, and it really, really, really shows. Now, I will say that potions will fill up the rest of those gaps. You can use potions of perception to get through a dungeon. You can use potions of thievery to pickpocket a store. Get lots and lots of hundreds of thousands of coins to get yourself very set up for the entire game. But you are going to be really, really showing how there is a lack of versatility to an assassin that you miss out with other thieves. You're going to have another thief to actually do the thieving, and the assassin is just there to do the damage. In that case, you can also pick up like a fighter or one of the other warrior kits or a mage to do lots and lots of damage. So assassins, and they get a poison. Okay, that's nice, but I don't hate assassins. I think they are useful, but they're useful they're one of those one-trick pony classes, and they're one trick other classes can do as well. So assassins go up here, very viable. But if you think that they are more powerful, more power to you. If you think that they're worse than normal thieves, I can see that too. Alright, so if you thought I was controversial by putting the assassin here, you'll think I'm real controversial by putting the swashbuckler above the assassin. In my rankings, in my mind, I just find the swashbuckler to be slightly more versatile. They can't backstab. That pretty sucks. That much sucks. But they can kind of fight. They can put 2 points into any weapon that a thief can use, so they're at the same level as, same offensive capability as like a paladin or a ranger. Okay. But they only get 1 attack per round. They don't get to wear helmets. They can use distance weapons. But in that case, then why aren't you using a fire thief? I don't know. I think that the stabbing in the back, you're missing out a lot, but they don't lose skill points per level. So everything else, including, by the way, going into stealth, there's nothing to stop your swashbuckler from going into stealth, stinking past enemies, and then getting to where they need to get to. Totally works as a swashbuckler. So I think swashbucklers are okay. I think that I would put more faith in a fighter, thief, multi-class, or dual class for my actual fighting abilities. But that being said, a swashbuckler has that versatility that an assassin lacks. So I like them. I put them just a little bit above assassins. But again, maybe your mileage may vary. Maybe you really, really love the poison and the ×7 backstab multiplier. I mean, I do too, but I also like being able to play through the entire game and to have the full range of abilities of a thief, rather than just have to have 2 thieves, 1 assassin, and 1 normal thief just to get through what I need to get through. I don't know. I think that swashbucklers, that versatility, answers what a thief already does, and does well. Alright, so next up is an illusionist. Illusionists are specialist mages who get enhanced versions of blindness and spook, which are pretty cool. They're very powerful spells, and you can use them at higher levels of the game. I've blinded Irenicus before. It's funny. It's funny when it happens. And those weren't illusionists. That was just a normal Joe who cast blindness right in his face. However, you do lose Skull Trap and Horde Wilting and Spirit Armor. Those are all pretty powerful spells, and Horde Wilting and Skull Trap do a lot of damage. A lot of raw magical damage, and that's really good. That's something that, by the way, Invokers miss out on. So you can cast Fireball, you can cast fire. What's the incendiary cloud? Thank you, incendiary cloud. I think my brain sometimes. Incendiary cloud. That's all fine, but that all does fire damage, and that can be easily resisted. Combining illusionists, though, with fighters and thieves is a really good combination. You're going to see that gnomes, they get that really big benefit to that. The next are necromancers, which is kind of interesting at the two opposition spells, opposition mages. And they get enhanced versions of Skull Trap, Finger of Death, and Horrid Wilting. All of those have saves, that now it's easier for them to fail those saves. That's really cool. But they do miss out on Mirror Image and Invisibility. Those are two spells that are survivable that enhance your survivability and enhance your utility. Because being able to waltz through anything invisible and just get through whatever you need to in order to get to where the mission is, it's a godsend for utility. And Mirror Image, early game and into Baldur's Gate, even into Baldur's Gate throwing a ball, it can save your character. It can save your mage. I cannot tell you the number of times I've lost Czar because someone came up behind him and I didn't have an ability to multiply, cast Mirror Image or to have him cast Invisibility. And I didn't give him an Invisibility potion because I'm an idiot and he died. That's happened on like 5 different occasions with my playthroughs on YouTube. Okay, I don't know if I've counted that correctly, but the point of the matter is that Czar likes to die. He likes to go 6 feet under, so that he can end up getting himself wrecked because he didn't have the ability to trick his enemies. That being said, his skull traps are fantastic. So necromancers, they're okay. Illusionists are okay. I think there's other specialist mages that are just a little bit better. Alright, next up is the Cleric Dual Class Mage. Now, I really would want this class to work. I would love this class to work, right? You take a class that uses shields and helmets, and then you give them healing spells and buffing spells, and then toss in the power of arcane spells, and then add on sequencers and contingencies that can use both arcane and divine spells. And God, this has such amazing potential, and every time I've used this, I've always had 3 issues really. 1 is figuring out when to make that switch. 2, having way too many spells to choose from in order to find the best circumstance, right? Because I can choose that 1 damaging divine spell, or I can choose that 1 damaging arcane spell. Well, I don't know. Am I gonna have my mage cast, or my cleric to mage cast Armor of Faith or Mirror Image? Both of those are, decent spells, and they're low level. So you have so many spells that it's a plethora of choice and can really harm your ability to actually use the class effectively. And then finally, you actually have to get to the point where you can cast both arcane and divine spells. And it takes you a very long time because you have a lot of experience points that you need to get in order to first get up to a high enough level of cleric to have them be a viable character, and then have them be a high enough character to a mage to actually meet that ability to get both. I just think that you miss out on so much, and as much as I would love for this class build to work, I find that it's very difficult. But if you can make it work, that's a lot of power. That's a huge amount of power. So give it a try. See if you can get it to work. Next up is the Avenger Druid. It's a first Druid, and it's not too shabby. In fact, I think this is only our 2nd Divine Caster that we have on this list. And it's not too shabby, right? You do sacrifice 2 points of Strength and Constitution, which is not amazing, but you're not going to be... The whole point is not to go into melee combat unless you are one of these different shape-shifting forms with different forms to them. I think I'm looking at my notes. They can become a sword spider that has a ton of attacks per round. Okay. They seem a little bit squishy though, so I don't know. They are immune to web, so you basically just you have somebody cast web, and then you send them on in and just have them bite them to death. Then you have a baby wyvern who is who gets poison attacks, and also I believe I saw on there that they're immune to level drain. I would not put a wyvern up against a vampire. I'm pretty sure that they would get rickety wrecked, but it's kind of interesting that they're immune to level drain. So, and then they come up fire salamander with a +1 weapon and an 8 fire resistance. That's kind of crap. Maybe they get a ton of HP from it. I don't know exactly those details, but I think they only get like their +1 weapon is like a great sword or something slow and cumbersome. It's not worth it. So they get a couple of unique spells. The most useful being Web, fantastic. Improved Invisibility, really good. Chaos, really good. Pretty good. They also get 3 crappy spells that you shouldn't cast. Chromatic Orb, I think, is one of them. Chain Lightning is one of them. And then I don't remember what the last one is. I think that they lose out in the ability. They lose out in the ability to wear anything heavier than leather armor. But I don't think you lose too much else that they don't need. And that's why I'm putting them high up on B tier, because there are better druids out there, but every other druid is going to be a better druid, but Avenger druids are viable. You can play as them and have a good time playing as different shape-shifted forms. And finally, at the top of B tier is the Shaman. I don't hate the Shaman. I don't love the Shaman. But it's fair to say that I like the Shaman. The Shaman is the top B tier, and I think this is the appropriate place to put it. It's the second class. I'm going to recommend a specific mod called the Improved Shaman's Dance mod. I'll put the link in below. And this is going to let the Shaman get some unique items, as well as enhance their dance to let them actually move around. Because I don't know about you, when you dance, I move around. I'm not good at dancing. I'm not saying I'm like graceful, but I move around. Shamans should be able to move around a little bit. I think the moving around is a little bit slower than normal movement. That's okay. I don't need it to be super fast, but being able to move around is pretty good. So the Improved Shaman Dance is, I would say, pretty good. I am reluctant to use the Shaman's Dance ability because you don't get to control the spirits. They might attack who you want them to. Or they could go after some wolf or gibbering that comes waddling in. I think the Shaman has a cool mechanic for choosing druidic spells. I think when I played as my Shaman, I liked the fact that I had that versatility and the power to be able to say, okay, I know the spells that I want when I'm casting. I know that I'm going to focus on those spells. I'm going to get as many castings as I want. There's a point where you get like one level 4 you get one ability to cast a level 4 spell, but you get like 3 or 4 castings of it. So you pick like Call Woodland Beings. You get 3 nymphs with you. Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's great. You'll have confusions and heals for days. It's awesome. It is a great kind of setup. So Shaman has that power. I mistakenly said they had that versatility. They have a lack of versatility. The nice part is that they get axes and short bows. That's kind of cool. I would say, if you're going to play as a Shaman, I strongly encourage you to play as a half-orc Shaman, because you get the bonus to strength, and that's pretty good. You don't miss out on anything else. I think half-orcs lose out on intelligence and charisma. Big whoop. Doesn't matter to a Shaman. Shaman just needs that strength, and then they get to cast spells. It's pretty cool. So Shaman, I like the Shaman. They're not amazing though. Okay, next up are my A tier class builds. This is my biggest group. All of these classes are decently well designed. They'll do what you need them to do. They'll do that job fairly well. They have weaknesses. Sometimes they're obvious weaknesses. Sometimes their weaknesses are non-existent because it's just part of their role. It's just it's more of a feature than it is a bug. And yeah, they'll do pretty good. And the first are the Totemic Druids. I've played around with putting Totemic Druids at the upper part of B tier, but I think that early game spike that they get of being able to use a spirit animal from like levels 1 through 10, the spirit critters can be pretty good. I think that they can actually be pretty good into Baldur's Gate 2 at the early part. Note that Death Spell and Death Fog will both kill those summons. but you can just resummon them. So I think that if you, well, okay, I have to double check on that because you might only get one casting per day, and then you're just a normal druid, but without shapeshifting. But the ability to summon a critter at level 1 that can do a lot of different things, and then level up a few levels, and they'll become much more powerful. Well, not bad, not bad. So I think totemic druids are good as long as you don't mind giving up shapeshifting, which can be a big deal later on in the game. I think that there are mods out there that let you shapeshift into the elemental forms, and then there are other mods out there that like greatly enhance those elemental forms. So if you can get your hands on those mods, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think totemic druids, I think they do belong in A tier because I think that power spike is really, really good. That being said, if druids are not your thing, or if you want to play as a different kind of druid, the one that shapeshifts, other druids might be better. Next up are, and this is a big change from what I had last time, the Inquisitor Paladin. I've dunked on paladins in the past because I have listened to others, and others have been poo-pooing them for a long time. Here's what I'll say about Inquisitor Paladins, and I've made this clear in comments. They are one-trick ponies. But that one trick is really good. So the way that they first off, they cannot cast, unlike any other paladin, they cannot cast divine spells. That's really bad for their ability to tank because they lose out on Armor of Faith and they lose out on other buffs from spell levels 1 through 4. But in return, they get the ability to use True Sight right at level 1. So Tarnish, casting blindness and casting mirror image at you, not a big deal at all. Just True Sight it, waltz up, slap them down. The other thing is they get a Dispel Magic that is twice the power of their level, and they can use that a number of times per day. That's phenomenal. That is really good. It can bite you in the butt. I'm not going to pretend it can't bite you in the butt because you might have your front line up there. You're going to have your Inquisitor in the back because they're not going to be able to take as many blows, but they can use a crossbow or a longbow pretty good. So they're going to fire into the crowd. And then let's say Animan gets chaosed or Korgan gets slowed, right? Or the opponent casts some really, really powerful weapon and you hear that, oh, I can't hit him. Oh, I can't hit him. I can't hit him, right? Over and over again. Cast Dispel Magic at twice the power level. That's pretty powerful. Pretty powerful Dispel Magic. It has a good chance of shutting down the opponents and what they want to do. And I think Inquisitors can do really, really good work doing that. I don't think they are, as you can tell, they are the lowest paladin ranking. But that one trick is really, really, really good. It blows my mind, by the way. Sorry, it blows my mind that some people actively choose to nerf that Dispel Magic. They choose to make it 1.5, and then they're like, oh, the Inquisitor sucks. It's like you're making them suck. You're taking this class that has this one trick, and you're nerfing their one trick. That only hurts you, by the way. There's no enemy Inquisitor out there that's casting these double strength Dispel Magics at your mages, right? It's just you and Keldor who are doing that. So don't nerf yourself. Don't take that mod. Don't take that mod. Don't be silly. Unless you're like, you know what? Shooting myself in the foot sounds like a really fun idea. Like, please don't do that, guys. So Inquisitor Paladin, solid A class. It's really good. I've dunked on them way too hard in the past. I think they're fine. I don't think they're the strongest Paladin. But they're not weak by any means. Okay, so next up is the Shapeshifter Druid. Now, a lot of you are probably scratching your head and saying, why is a Shapeshifter, how could a Shapeshifter possibly be lower than basic Druids? It's very tricky because I don't know about you, but I have seen 3 or 4 different mods that plays around with that Shapeshifter format and the Shapeshifter, what they do. They have a really good potential to be very, very, very powerful. Possibly even S tier. That's how powerful that Wolfware, greater Wolfware form can be. That being said, Yeah, we're talking about, by the way, we're talking about the Greater Wolfware form. We're talking about they're hastened, they hit like a truck, they regenerate, and they can cast their spells, and they're basically immune to anything that's +2 and below. That's a lot of stuff that they have for survivability. However, that kind of does break the game. And I don't even know which mod that is that allows for that insane level of power. I'm not even sure if I can recommend taking that mod, because there's other mods out there that are like, yeah, they're too powerful in the base game, so we nerf them. Right? So shapeshifters are just so weirdly placed depending on what mods you use. And I know that the original form, the original version of the game, they weren't great, but they could kind of do what you wanted them to do. I put them here at this point to say, if you're playing with SCS components and you're playing with their modded version, I believe their modded version gives them a lot of power, but I think it's not insane. I don't know. I put them here because they has the potential to be very, very, very powerful, and you do miss out on the other shape-shifting forms, and you miss out on wearing armor. Okay, but I believe you can still wear a helmet, so it protects your chrome dome, and you can cast the spells that you need to cast. So I think shapeshifters are totally fine. You give them a sling, give them their werewolf form, they'll be okay. So I put them here. Maybe I could swap the Inquisitor and the Shapeshifter Druid in my mind, but having the ability to cast Iron Skins leads to a lot of good survivability. So Shapeshifter Druid goes right here. All right, next up is the Stalker Ranger. This is another imitation of the Stealthy Warrior build that I can see using the combination of Thaco and a Warrior's Thaco with Backstab. And I think that as, hasted with their hasted and popping invisibility potions with that Backstab, it can be a lot of fun. I think that Stalkers letting you Backstab with the weapons that are available is really good. I wish, though, that they let you backstab with more weapons than just thief weapons. I wish that you could go in with a halberd and just like stealthily or using invisibility, just like plunge it right into the back of some mage, or plunge into the back of some dragon somewhere and be like, surprise stab! That'd be great. But they don't let you do that. But you could still just switch out to like a katana and do the same amount of damage with that and still not look as cool. I'm just saying. I think halberds look awesome, and not many people use them, which makes me sad. Regardless, Stalkers are good. They get some unique spells that aren't amazing, but haste can be useful, especially if you don't have a wizard who has level 3 spells available. So I like Stalker class. I have a few notes about the name, but Stalker Rangers are good. All right, next up are the 2 Bard kits. These are the Bard kits that you should be using if you want to play as a Bard. And I put the Scald first. I think the Scald, they're interchangeable. If you prefer more high lore, maybe a better song, more of a group dynamic Bard, the Scald is a better choice. As stated, you aren't soloing with the Scald. You are not soloing with the Scald. Scalds cannot solo. Blades cannot solo. You're supposed to have a group, and they're supposed to benefit from the fact that they get a bonus to Thaco, a bonus to damage, and really good spell casting alongside of being decent. I think that Scalds are really good, and you're also dealing with getting levels very quickly because you're getting levels just like a thief is getting levels. Blades are the same thing. Your viewpoint on whether they are better than Scalds, it's entirely based on your gameplay. Blades, I think, are the way that I would say a combat-y Bard should be. They're not going to be amazing. They get the offensive and defensive spins, which are great. I'm sorry. Let me correct that. Do yourself a favor. Never cast defensive spin. It just roots you to one spot and gives you a bonus to AC. That's it. If it's a fireball coming your way, you're roasty toasty. Offensive spin is great because it gives you a little bit of a haste. You can scoot around as you need to. So that's pretty good. You're not going to be doing the big damage that a fighter does. You can be in the front line casting stone skins and mirror images and letting your fighters do the big damage. Or you can be in the back singing songs. That's not bad too. So Blades and Scalds, very, very good. They are the kits that you should be taking if you're playing as a bard. And then you get the extra bonuses. So they're pretty good. Alright, so for the next several classes, next 5 classes, they are completely interchangeable due to your combat style, your play style, and how you want to play the game, especially for frontline warriors that go in and beat the bejesus out of whatever they're about to go against. There are great cases to be made about where they end up and where they end up being in each spot, but I decided to put the Kensai next. This is I'm going to cut down my enemies before they can hit me first class. Make no mistake, Kensai's scaling abilities are amazing. They can get a bonus to hit, to damage, every 3 levels. You can get Grand Mastery, making them devastating against opponents. However, I hate the fact that I have a frontline character who has no protection against critical hits. And has no access towards big items that grant resistance. Losing armor is not good at all. Losing helmets is devastating. Losing bracers is a big problem. In context, the worst fighter, the Wizard Slayer, can potentially survive longer than a Kensai because they can put a helmet on. That's kind of sad. Furthermore, losing armor loses out on elemental resistances. So Kensai, I have a lot of notes about the Kensai. That's the reason why I put them lower on this kind of ranking of frontline fighters. That being said, the damage output that a Kensai gets is amazing, and I cannot fault people for saying that their philosophy is the good offense is the best defense. Just be careful. If you've never played a Kensai before, be careful. At the time of writing this, I started a Kensai run. I've dual classed them to being a thief, and they're doing well, but I recognize that they're going to have kind of a rough time doing the job unless I can find some way to protect them from critical hits, which them dual classing to thief might save their life. I'm just saying, Kensai, they come with a few caveats. So please be careful if you're playing as a Kensai. My dog is even commenting. She's saying that she's nervous about Kensai. Yeah, that's okay. She's involved. Anyway, all right. So next up in my notes is the Paladin, the basic Paladin. Basic Paladin is pretty much the opposite. They're going to get Armor of Faith, casting Armor of Faith, draw upon Holy Might for divine spells that they'll get starting at level 9. They get a bonus to their saves. They're clad in plate mail and helmets. They are not expected to do nearly as much damage as any fighter, because they only get 2 points in any of the weapons. With that said, they get additional kind of pieces that help out. They get a little bit of healing. That's nice. They can be the face of the party. They are expected to be the face of the party. They can't have a charisma under 17. They're going to be the face of your party. The drawback to Paladins is that when you're rolling them, like the lawful good alignment, I don't think that's a restriction. That's just part of the game, right? But the rolling of scores and the rolling of stats, it's a big time waster, right? We all spam the reroll button. Everybody spams the reroll button. Don't pretend you don't. If you don't, you're probably going to EE Keeper and you're just changing the stats to whatever you want the stats changed to. Nobody makes any judgments. You play the game you want to play. I'm just saying that like in the original games, it was really, really, really rough to click reroll over and over and over and over and over again, waiting for that, 92 to hit, and then praying that your exceptional strength score was decent, right? Anything above 50, fingers crossed, right? So that being said, everybody spams the reroll button. Don't be ashamed of it. I remember way back in the 5-disc set of Baldur's Gate 1, Paladins were the class that I wanted to play. They were just so cool. If you believe that Inquisitors are a better type of Paladin, don't blame you. Don't blame me at all. It's just a different flexibility vibe. I do think that Paladins are just a little more versatile than the anti-magic based character that is the Inquisitor. With that said, if you want to talk versatility, you want a fighter. Fighters can wear armor and hit like a truck. They don't get any of the fancy frills that other fighters get. They don't get the bonuses, the massive bonuses to hit and to damage that Kensai get, but they do get the ability to get Grand Mastery in any weapon. Personally, I think flails, axes, and longswords are going to be your best choices, depending on what you want and what weapons you want to get in the game. There are a lot of multi-class and dual-class options that combine a basic fighter with other things that makes them way better. The thing to note is that the role of the fighter shifts. In the beginning of the game, they start off because they have the most HP of any of the basic classes, or really close to the highest HP, that they are basically the tank. They're the frontliners. They're going to go in, they're going to take damage due to their good AC score and defense against critical hits and high HP. When you get to the end of Baldur's Gate 1 into Baldur's Gate 2 and into Throne of Ball, the role shifts from being the frontline tank to being the damage dealer, the physical damage dealer. And in City of Hero terms, like I played City of Heroes back in the day. I still load it up on occasion through one of the other things that's out there. They will shift from being a tank to becoming a scrapper. And that they will do a huge amount of damage even if they're not taking so much damage. So if you were to, let me put it this way too, right? For their ease and simplicity, if you were to introduce a new player to Baldur's Gate or any other RPG, a basic fighter is a really good class to get them to try out. There are other classes that are really good too, and I'll point those out as we keep going, but fighters, solid class. Alright, so next up is the Blackguard. Blackguard is the evil version of the Paladin. The cool part about them is you can be completely heroic and good and have no consequences in being a Blackguard. You have complete flexibility in whatever role-playing route you want to go down. So, excuse me, they get divine spells, same divine spells that a Paladin gets. They're gonna have similar stats, although they don't have to have the super high wisdom and charisma that a normal paladin gets. So that eases them up a little bit. They lose out on some of the crappy abilities like detect evil, protection from evil, which you're casting better spells for that. Their poison weapon ability, meh, it's not amazing. The absorb health ability is pretty good. I've used that on occasion, and it's nice if you're in the middle of combat to just suck some health back. Your Despair works well. At low levels, it just acts as a debuff against opponents, and you feel it. You feel it. At low levels, you can go into an area that you're easily outnumbered, pop that off, and then in melee, you don't get hit quite as often. It's nice. It is noticeable at those lower levels. I would say that you do lose out on the good coded items like the Karsamir +5 greatsword that wipes off magic every time you swing it. You lose out on that. Okay, but there's also evil coded items that you do get in return. So you just have to look out for those. You have to find those. I will say that when you play as a Blackguard, since you're not bound to be good or evil, you can really have a lot of flexibility. You can play a lot of fun things. You could play a Blackguard as basically being a goody two-shoes. You can also play a Blackguard as being completely evil and psychotic and murderous and have a good time with it. So I think there's a lot of role-playing versatility to a Blackguard, and their abilities are pretty good. By the way, they also get immunity to fear, which is pretty good, and level drain, which makes them good against vampires or good against shadows or anything that can suck out your life. I have a personal, really strong hatred of level drain. I think it's one of the worst things that you could do to a character is level drain them, even though all it takes to get rid of it is a restoration scroll or restoration spell. It still is one of those things that just is like, oh my gosh, why is this out of the... I panicked every time I got early on in the game when I started playing Baldur's Gate 2. But, nowadays, I know a Blackguard can send them in, slap them down. It's all groovy. All right, and last in this string of classes that are the cut down my enemy, beat the bejesus out of them, I put the Barbarian here. I'm not offended if you don't agree. I think if you want to say the Kensai does more physical damage, that's fine. But I think a Barbarian with their rage does a really good job. Having a strength and constitution boosted up to 22 respectively when you have them already at high level, or 23 if you read the spell the tomes. That's pretty good. You get a bonus to protect against spells, save versus spells. They get immunities to charm, confusion, hold, level drain, maze, panic, paralyze, sleep, and stun. Even though they take a penalty to AC, okay. But, and their rage, of the rages, I consider there to be 3 rages. There's Minx Rage, which is garbage. Only use it if you're desperate. There is the Barbarian Rage, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's short, though. And then there's the Berserker Rage, which we'll talk about at a much later time. The cool thing about the Barbarian Rage is that there's no downside to it. All the other rages has this downside to them. Whereas the Barbarian Rage, when it ends, you could be in the middle of combat and you'll be fine. So I'd say that Barbarians have a really good rage. They get an inherent damage reduction as they level up to 20% damage reduction. That's really good. That's really good. They get, in addition to hardiness, in addition to Defender of East Haven, those are some really solid damage reduction abilities. That's very good. They get higher HP. The only other class that gets a higher HP at level 1 is the Beastmaster Ranger. And I would be stunned if you picked a Beastmaster Ranger over a Barbarian based on HP. Don't do that. Don't be silly. Barbarians are a great tank class. Oh, and they're also immune to backstab. Like, whoa, that's awesome. If you play stupid like I did when I did I did a one and done with a Barbarian, I walked him into an area with a ton of ghasts, and one of them slapped me and stunned me and basically ate me alive. Yeah, that kind of happens. If you're stupid, you'll die quickly. But if you have your brain on and you handle your Barbarian well, they're so good. They're so good. Barbarians are great. But like I said, any of these 5 classes that I brought up, you can put them anywhere. If you want to make it, if you think that they're an S tier class, or if you think they're dog crap, whatever. I think this is where they go. I think they're solid. All these classes are solid. Okay, next up, after we're done with the 5 I guess, A-tier fighter classes, which, by the way, there's other warrior classes that I'm going to put up in the A-tier as well. Next up, I put up a thief kit. I put up a bounty hunter. What's better than a thief? How about a thief that can set extra traps, from a distance, some of which are from a distance away? They get a bonus to setting traps, which, by the way, traps are really, really, really good. And the extra traps that they get, up to a certain point, are absolutely amazing. Now, I hear the biggest complaint I hear about bounty hunters is that after level 16, their traps are terrible. I don't completely agree. Here's the reason why. Between levels 16 and 20, they are locked down with a Radiant Spear. Okay, I will confess I agree with you. That's not phenomenal. Unless you're fighting a mob of opponents and you want to isolate the group, right? The other one, at level 21, puts them through a no-save maze that goes through magic resistance. Okay, so there's those two for once you hit level 16, that basically isolate certain opponents. How many opponents, in my thought is look at the tactics, okay? If you're talking about raw damage alone, sure, okay, use the other traps. You have your other traps that are insanely powerful by that point. At level 16, a normal trap is doing a lot of damage. But here's the thing. Let's say you have your party of 6, and you're about to face off against another party of 6. What's easier, taking on the 6x6 combat and hoping that your guys end up on top, or using a trap or using mazes or spears to lock down 3 of them and then kill the other 2? And in the case of the maze, they're coming back piecemeal. You see how strategically that's not a bad proposition to do that, right? To basically lock up people for a short time so they can't help their allies. Bounty hunters do a really, really good job of playing into the strategy of using traps well. And again, if you don't like those things, there's ways around it. You can get the high-level traps. And the high-level traps are really powerful, right? So, and getting the bonuses, not only that, you're also not losing that many points. You lose, 5 points per level as skill points? You can put your skills into all sorts of other things, right? You can be great at finding traps. You can be great at stealth. You can be great at opening locks or detecting illusions. You could do all sorts of things with a bounty hunter. So really, I would take a bounty hunter over the other thief kits that I've talked about. One thief kit we all know is going to be way higher, but still, bounty hunters are really good, and I think they get a bad rap because of those high level traps. But just pick the impaling trap. That'll be good too. Or use the traps strategically. You'll actually win fights. So they get a bad rap, and they don't deserve their bad rap. Alright, so next up is the Cleric Illusionist multiclass. The Cleric Illusionist multiclass and the Cleric Mage multiclass have the benefit of casting large numbers of spells. You run into the same issue that you ran into with the Cleric to Mage dual class. So the problem with that is that you're going to have way too many spells to pick from, and it's going to be very, very difficult. But the Cleric to Illusionist dual class, the pool is going to seem a little bit shallow because you have so many spells to pick from. As a Cleric Illusionist, first off, you're being addressed as a gnome, and you're only doing that as a gnome. So you get a bonus to save versus spells and save versus wands. It's pretty good. On the other hand, you lose out on necromancy spells. So no skull trap, no spirit armor for Quail. On the other hand, if you're a Cleric Mage like Ari is, you have kind of the same issue where you have so many different spells to be cast that it becomes a little overwhelming. And not only that, but you're not going to have as good of a mage and as good of a cleric as other characters who are pure in that class are. That being said, for the early part of Baldur's Gate 2 and into Throne of Ball, Ari is pretty good to have in your party. I don't think she's a bad companion to have as far as power goes. She's really good if you're playing as a thief or as a fighter. In that case, I think that you have a lot of spellcasting potential, but I think as far as power goes later on, you may want to have a pure mage and a pure cleric in those roles. Make clerics get a ton of spells, a ton of castings per day, and then mages have those level 9 spells that are just game breaking. So I think cleric mages, I think they're good. I think they're very good. They have a lot of high potential. And they have high potential at different points of the game that makes them really good. I know some people who swear by them at the very beginning of the game, where you can cast like spells like Find Familiar and then Sanctuary and then, Command Word Die to waltz through different areas and get a ton of XP very, very, very quickly, get a ton of gold very quickly. I think that there's ways you can play as a cleric mage and do a decent job at it. So I put them at A tier. They're very, very solid. And yeah, I think they have a potential to be more powerful than the other plain fighter classes because you have so many spell capabilities. Though, that being said, are you going to be the most powerful caster on, Faerun? Maybe not, but you'll be pretty dang good. Alright, next up I have the Druid. The Druid loses nothing and gets everything. Would a Druid be who can summon spirit animals be better? Okay, maybe they might be, but a druid who can shapeshift into elemental forms and keep their strength and constitution at 18 and can actually wear armor and a helmet, it's not too shabby. I think that druids have a lot of versatility and can cast some of the scariest spells in the game. Insect Plague, Call Lightning, Call Woodland Beings, Iron Skins, all really good. I do wish that druids had better spells early on in the game. Entangle is a joke of a spell. It used to be great, but it's not. In the original Baldur's Gate, it would act similar to... It would be party friendly and would just snatch up the guys that are... It would just target the areas in an area and lock them down for their movement. And then you could move in and you could do what you need to do. You weren't at risk of being entangled yourself. I think that's the way Entangled should work, but Baldur's Gate 2 did not agree with me, and it's wrong. But that being said, you wait until they hit that spot where they can cast level 3 spells, hang out outside, and cast Call Lightning. Really good damaging spell. You get really good level 5 spells, 6 spells, 7 spells. You get to have really powerful HLAs. And then you can cast all of the Iron Skins and Armor of Faith spells that you want to, and you'll be golden. So the druid gets incredibly powerful in the middle of Baldur's Gate 1, and then stays fairly powerful throughout the rest of the game with offensive spells and also supporting spells. I would say that I can't consider them any lower than this. Druids, they can do really, really well. That being said, I do think clerics, they're next on the list. I think that they have a little bit higher potential for me, because where a druid has to kind of get warmed up to get going, a cleric starts strong right away, and they will stay fairly strong and even throughout a lot of the game, right? A lot of people, when they play, their first experience with divine spells is having Jaheira in their party. Jaheira, being a druid, she's good. She'll do what you need her to do as far as healing goes, but it's not until she hits that point of level 5 where she's casting Call Lightning that those spells really become useful. Clerics at level 1 get Command Word Die. Knock an opponent down for a round while you wail on them. They get a Sanctuary. Basically makes them... It's an oh crap, hide behind Sanctuary, run away button. That's pretty good. Clerics, and they also get really good crowd control options. They get good summons at level 1, level 2, and level 3. They get, sorry, the summons don't come in until a little later on, but still, the Animate Dead, getting that as early as level 3, as level 3 spell, that's pretty good. Aerial Servant, very, very good. They get access to armor and helmets. Bunch of bludgeoning weapons. Again, they're not really resisted by many opponents. So, now, do I roll that many clerics when I do playthroughs? No. I should. Do I rely on clerics? Yeah, I do. They're pretty amazing. Druids are good. Clerics are good. Priests of the Pantheon are next. I put them higher than all of the priests of the particular gods. They don't lose anything except for a minor alignment restriction. Even then, if you play as true neutral, as I do almost all the time, every single one of them can be true neutral. So, but what do they get in return? They get certain abilities that they can use. Some of these abilities suck. They're terrible. Lightning Bolt, not a very good spell. I don't like it, because you end up killing yourself. That being said, Storm Shell is decent. If you're, I'm talking about particularly about Priests of Talos, and they can cast all the other spells that they want to cast. So being a Priest of Talos, you don't lose anything. I think that you at the end of the day, being a Priest of the Pantheon versus being a cleric is, if you want to be really, really versatile, maybe being a cleric, might be good. But if you want just a few extra abilities, you want to look in, I think, what did I say? I think Priests of Lothander are probably the best if you want priests of particular pantheons, but, you know, your mileage may vary. I think priests of pantheons are totally fine. Okay, so we went from casting divine spells to now going back to bashing your opponents on the head, particularly skulls, because we're going after we're having the Undead Hunter next. I like the Undead Hunter because if you want to play as a paladin, have the full access to all the weapons needed despite evil, then just be an Undead Hunter. Normally, I'm not a big fan of characters and classes that specifically are against one particular type of enemy. That being said, there are so many undead monsters in this game that being an Undead Hunter makes a lot of sense. Being immune to level drain, very specific. I don't like level drain. I have a very strong hatred of level drain, so that's a particular bias for me. But being immune to hold is wonderful. Oh, it's so good, especially for a frontline fighter. If you take an Undead Hunter in Baldur's Gate 1, set him against a pack of ghasts, ghouls, and zombies and skeletons, just watch the fun. Put points into either flails or maces for extra fun. And oh my gosh, it's so good watching them just wreck everything. Okay, I know that they fall off towards the later part of Throne of Ball. Okay, fine. You still are going to have a really great time. You're still going to have access to divine casting. Okay, you lose the ability to lay on hands. Tier. I do wish, however, for Undead Hunters, I wish that they would get an enhanced ability to turn undead. That, to me, makes a lot of sense. I don't know why they didn't include that. I don't know why they didn't do that. But, you know, whatever. I think Undead Hunters are they're a great paladin kit. You don't lose much at all. They're worth playing. Play as one. They're simple, they're great. All right, next up, the real late game powerhouse, the main arcane caster themselves, the wizard. There is a reason why every time you see an enemy group and you see one of them is a wizard, there is a good chance, if you're playing on high enough difficulty, that one or more of your party members is about to be knocked out, obliterated, incinerated, or controlled. Arcane magic has more variety and power than divine magic. Now, there's a few drawbacks. You get fewer spells cast per day, and you have to scribe scrolls in order to get them memorized or get them into your spell book. And then you have to choose which ones you're going to memorize from the ones you have available. Wizards are the main arcane caster. Their hit points are laughable. They have very limited access to items and to weapons. But once you get some levels and get some access to wands, get access to scrolls, you will have power to rock the world. And I mean that quite literally. You can shape an entire battlefield with a single cast of something. If you have something like Robe of Vecna, you can cast it rapid fire and control a battlefield like no other. You will become the essential party member, excuse me, and you will become the most powerful of the four main class types, which are the warriors, the rogues, the clerics, and the thieves. Sorry, warriors and wizards. Wow. Let me try that one more time. The warriors, thieves, priests, divine casters, and arcane casters. You will be the most powerful of those, generally speaking. At a certain point, you're going to cast spells that make you tankier than fighters, that are better with buffing themselves and with the party than clerics, and allow almost as much utility as thieves. Any dual class into mage gets all the special super-powered spells like Mirror Image, Skull Trap, Stone Skin, Chaos, Death Spell, Ruby Ray Reversal, Horde Wilting, Time Stop, Summon Plantar, all that stuff, and have their other abilities as well. So if you are learning about arcane spells, and you're playing for the first time and you want to try out playing as many or seeing as many of these spells as you can, play as a wizard. Are they a good early game choice? Maybe not. But if you want to learn about arcane casting and you want to learn about the awesome power it can do, play as a wizard. Play as a wizard, get yourself leveled up, and just have fun. All right, with that, I went ahead and I'm putting invokers next. There's two specialist mages I put above basic wizards. By the way, I forgot to mention this when I mentioned specialist wizards, and I'm sure someone's going to make a comment in the comment below before I make this comment. They also get 1 extra memorization of spells per day. So even an abjurer, if they have the right spell layout, can have more castings per day than a basic wizard does. Invokers. Let's talk about invokers for a moment. The invoker, they get a lot of firepower. They get enhanced versions of Web, Fireball, Cloud Kill, Death Fog, Incendiary Cloud, and a lot of other spells that require a save to prevent them. It makes your spells hit a lot harder. You do lose access to enchantment spells. So you lose access to Sleep, Charm Person, Chaos, things like that. But you can do a lot of the items, you can do a lot of the things that enchanters can do already. Right? Kind of like if you have a wand of fire, you can cast Fireball with any character that can use wands. Okay, that's fine. But like an invoker can cast a charm spell from 2 or 3 different magic items that lets you cast Charm Person. They can cast Hold for Web. They can cast Web for holding opponents. They can cast Stinking Cloud or use Wands of Sleep to get opponents to sleep. And the only major effect that I think is lost, and this is one I didn't mention with Enchanter, is Greater Malison. And it's not great, but if you have a Cleric with Doom, it does the same thing except not as powerful and not AoE. So, okay, fine. But Evocation is, I would say, the first... When you're looking at the spells of schools and you see that there's one that literally manipulates magical energy, why would you not look to that and be like, so I become the lord and master of all the elements? Sure, why not? So, sign me up. I like invokers. I think they're really, really a lot of fun. Okay, but I would say that the top specialist mage is the Conjurer. The Conjurer gets to cast all of the fun spells, except for spells that anybody could get at any store, right? They lose out on divination spells, so they lose out on Identify, which most stores can already identify items. They lose out on True Sight, or any spell that lets you see through invisibility. Guess what? Inquisitors can do the same thing. So Conjurers, they get... the Conjuration spells are not always absolutely game-shattering, right? Like, Edwin is the best spellcaster in the game, not because he's a conjurer, but because he gets a ton of spellcasting spells. But it's because they get spells that are power words, the symbols, various symbols, symbol of death, symbol of stun, whatever, flame arrow, glitter dust. Those things have harder saves against them now. Conjurers don't lose much at all from losing divination. Unlike invokers that lose quite a bit from... You have to use items to supplement a lot of stuff with an invoker. With a conjurer, you don't need to utilize all that much. So really a conjurer... I would say they are the top specialist mage if you're looking at it statistically and analytically. If you like the idea of casting fireballs and blasting opponents to bits, invokers are great. Conjurers are also just as good at using other spells to make them very, very, very powerful. But just when you were done thinking about mages, we're going to go with the Thief to Mage dual class next. Now, I've gone through all the specialist mages. I'd say as a personal point, I like the Thief to Mage dual class because you get so much as far as utility goes. You get extended weapon usage, yay. There's one specific kit I like a little better than others, and that will be a higher ranking. But you get quite a lot. I'm not going to put them S tier, and I'll tell you the reason why. It's because you already get 2 companions that are exactly this kit, and there's no point in doubling up on those companions when, in fact, you have other companions that do the same thing. But with that said, Thief to Mage dual class, if you really hate the 2 companions that you could potentially pick, or if you want to go with the specific kit, like if you want to be a Swashbuckler mage, or if you want to be a Shadow Dancer mage, or an Assassin mage, that's pretty good. I think that ends up right here, and I think you're going to be better off. You get the combination of the utility of being a thief and the weapon proficiencies that a thief can get, along with also the really nice utility spells that a mage gets. So I think that you end up being a big win-win if you do a thief to mage dual class. And right when you thought we were done talking about mages, we're talking about that class that's going to drive everybody bonkers, and I'm putting only in A tier and not S tier, the Wild Mage. Now, a lot of you are screaming at your computers right now and saying, how can you dare not put the Wild Mage at S tier? Oh! That's actually pretty easy to answer, but it's going to be long for me to answer. If you're talking about the God tier level that's well wielded in Throne of Ball, okay, fine. Yes, I will concede. Wild Mages are insanely powerful. How do you feel at level 1? How do you feel at level 5? How do you feel at level 10? Now, the answer for most of us is a little bit nervous. If you're playing reloading every time you get a really bad Wild Surge that summons a demon in the middle of a town to blow you up, okay, fine. Wild Mages are fun. They're goofy. Let me explain Wild Mages, because I think they require a lot of explanation in order to really understand where I'm coming from and putting them here. Now, I want to emphasize, this is the top of A tier. This is really good. This is a really good class, okay? I am not saying they are bad. I am not saying they are a bad class to play. I'm not saying they're unplayable. They are really good. They are more powerful than basic wizards. They are more powerful than every other specialist wizard. They are more powerful than a lot of dual classing into mages. They are very, very, very good. But they have particular drawbacks. So let me explain how Wild Mages work. Every spell cast by a Wild Mage has a 5% chance, a 1 in 20 chance, to cause a Wild Surge, which requires a roll on the Wild Surge table. Some of these surges are harmless. Some of them are helpful. Some of them are devastating, but most of them are just annoying. One particular spell that all Wild Mages get is called Nahal's Reckless Dewormer. It allows the Wild Mage to attempt to cast anything in their spellbook, even spells that are not memorized. However, there is an automatic roll on the Wild Surge table. Now, the Wild Surge table normally is cast with that 1 in 20 chance, or normally is rolled in that 1 in 20 chance. When you roll on the Wild Surge table, it's a 1d100 roll with your Wild Mage adding their level and other factors like casting Chaos Shield or Improved Chaos Shield to that roll, as well as certain items that allow you to protect yourself. So if a Wild Mage rolls over 100, the spell is cast normally. Whoop-de-doo, you got it. If they are more powerful, if they are very, very, very powerful, if they're level 30, and they already have the other elements that help to increase their power, you could easily get over 100 and have your spells cast, and not only that, but have any spell cast as a level 1 spell. That means spells like Horrid Wilting, that means spells like Time Stop, that means spells like Wish, cast over and over and over again at a very high level. Okay, cool. Now let's look at the math on this. Once you hit level 14, you get Improved Chaos Shield. You cast that and you add 25 points to your Wild Magic roll. Again, spell slots don't necessarily matter so much because you can use Reckless Dewormer to cast other spells in level 4 spot. Okay, or the level 7 spot where you get Improved Chaos Shield. Yes, level 7. This changes, and now you have a bonus 39 points to your Wild Magic roll. It's pretty good. Picking up the Thayan Circlet, it gives another 15 rolls. That's if you have Nira in your party. And then reaching the max level of 31 gives you a total bonus, if I'm not mistaken, of 71 towards your Wild Magic roll. In about 7 out of 10 times of casting Reckless Dewormer, you're going to get the spell off. About 30% of the time, you're going to be dealing with a lot of different effects And most of these are actually not that bad for the caster. Most of them are actually bad for the target. So if you're casting, let's say you're casting, Horde Wilting on an area, right? It might be that anyone in the area gets impacted. Maybe it goes off normally because you're hitting an area of effect and it was specifically at a target and there's no specific target, so nothing happens with the wild surge and the spell goes off normally. Okay, neat. But I put this at the top of A tier. It takes a class 25 levels to wield that kind of power. I cannot put them at S tier. I just can't. I know that there's a massive amount of power. An S tier class doesn't petrify themselves when they're trying to cast spells that prevent them from being petrified. That's exactly what happened to my Wild Mage when I cast Protection from Petrification at level 2 or 3 in my Wild Mage playthrough. An S tier class doesn't prevent a class from using the main function of that class for many of the levels of the game out of fear that they're going to accidentally summon a demon and wipe out 80% of their party's gold. If you are playing with reloads and you're playing for the lulz and you're playing for the enjoyment and how many times can we goof around and see what wild effect magics happen, right? Then you will have a fun time. And yes, then you can say, okay, they're an S tier class. For me, I can only see them getting insanely powerful at very, very high levels. And if I'm playing on hardcore mode, meaning my character dies, I'm ending that game, I go back to Candlekeep, I can't put them at level at S tier. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't see myself getting to level 7 unless I don't use spells. At that point, then why use an arcane caster? Why not use a bard? A bard uses wands. A bard can cast spells without having to blow themselves up, right? And they can use all sorts of items. I don't hate the Wild Mage. I just think they're for a particular kind of player who is okay with complete chaos. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to do another Wild Mage playthrough. I promise you. I just can't see them as S tier. Top of A tier, yes, because their power potential is outstanding. They're not S tier, though. Okay, so now I have a little bit of an issue in that I've only touched on a few of the multi-class options, and I've given a lot of other class options that potentially can multi-class. So I've decided to add an additional tier to the A tier that they're not quite S tier for some reason or another, probably because of the XP it takes to get these characters really going. But this tier is basically an A+ tier that is dedicated entirely to multi-classing and where I would put them into multi-classing. If it's not in this tier, it's probably because it was lower down, somewhere in A tier. Yeah, I'm looking here, I see it somewhere in A tier. And keep in mind, I'm talking about multi-classing here. I'm not talking about dual classing options that I've already talked about or I will talk about with S tier. So the first that I'm going to put in is the Thief Cleric multi-class. I would say that it looks like an awkward multi-class that you're only able to backstab with clubs and staves. However, this is a utility character and this will be a pretty good build. You don't lose that much. You still get the ×5 multiplier. You still get your holy symbol. You get a wide range of HLAs, and you get access to all the thieving abilities. That's pretty good. I like the Thief and Cleric multi-class. All right, next up is the Fighter Cleric multi-class. There's a few redundancies regarding equipment. Fighter Cleric allows a cleric to get access to more attacks per round, better THAC0, more HP. They can cast all sorts of divine spells. They can wear armor at the same time as wearing helmets and shields and not have any issues. They're restricted to using blunt weapons, but like I've said, that's not a big problem. Blunt weapons are pretty good in this game. And I enjoy this combination because it's a pure benefit to the divine caster. I think that a lot of these you're going to find the higher ranking the class is for the rest of the classes, whether it's an A tier or a B tier or a C tier. the higher ranking it is, the more benefit that class will get than the other side, but that's totally fine because it's already a more powerful thing. They get more protections being a fighter. They get more utility being a thief. So that's pretty good. Next up is a Cleric Ranger multiclass. This is one that when I first played, I didn't quite get how this could be possibly good. This is, I'm going to give, by the way, a half-modded suggestion. There is an INI file, and in that file, there's an option that says Cleric Ranger spells. If you switch it from either 0 to 1 or 1 to 0, and you will get access to all of the Druid spells as well as the Cleric spells. This is the way that you can play with all Divine spells. If you don't want to play it that way, that's fine. That's fine. No judgment. This is the way I like to play it because it's a reason to actually use the class. With that said, Rangers themselves aren't anything to write home about. I put them at C tier and I stick with them at C tier. But combining it with a Cleric and having them also with Druidic spells too, that's really good. It softens the blow that Druids don't get that power spike until later on in the game. And not only that, but like Rangers aren't horrible fighters. And you combine that now with another class that has divine spells, that's not bad. It's only for half-elves, so that's kind of icky. But, you know, you get a small resistance to sleep. You get some infravision. Good deal. If I didn't love maces and flails, then I would be like more stuck up on this class. But you get bonus 2 points into two weapon wielding. So I think as I've grown up, and as I've actually tried out using a Cleric Ranger, I thought they were pretty good. I was not disappointed. All right, next up, I went with the Fighter Thief multiclass. One of my favorite runs playing as a Fighter Thief was I was an Elf Fighter Thief, and I felt like a ranged goddess, frolicking through the woods, skipping through with a longbow, picking off enemies, and then wearing a helmet while picking locks, and then finding traps, and doing everything that I could do to both do range damage and do utility stuff. Being a Fighter Thief is very good in the early game. It's able to handle a lot of situations solo. The only reason why my Fire Thief died was because I was stupid in the final fight. It was the only reason why she died. She could have gone through Baldur's Gate 2 and had a great time, but again, I was dumb in Baldur's Gate 1. That being said, she was phenomenal in Baldur's Gate 1 with composite longbows. Oh, so friggin' good. There's a big benefit that they get when HLAs come to effect. Since the fighter HLAs aren't great, they can get, obviously, use any item, but, you know, okay, whoop-de-doo, there. Well, okay, it's a big whoop-de-doo. It's a fantastic thing to be able to use, like, I don't know, wizard scrolls and other things that are really good. But setting spike traps and time traps, going in and bashing opponents while they're frozen, or sticking them with a ton of arrows, oh, so good. So good. Now add together backstabbing with critical strike, or dealing maximum critical damage multiplied by 5. Oh my god, you are a pure engine of physical damage. So amazing. I freaking love it. I think that they are fighter thieves. I had so much fun playing as them. I thought it was really good. Next class I put up here is the Fighter Illusionist. This is specifically if you're a gnome. I want to make it clear, and I've made it clear in other videos, and I think this still hasn't really sunk with people because it's so weird when we think about it, but a gnome loses absolutely nothing from being a fighter. Now, they're a fighter that can cast Blindness, Mirror Image, Blur, Invisibility, and a ton of other spells except for Necromancy. They can cast Conjuration spells and Evocation spells. They can cast Abjuration spells. They can cast Transmutation spells. They can cast all those special spells, and they get 1 extra spell per level. Toss in the fact they get a bonus to against saves. Bonuses to save against spells and wands because you are a gnome. Okay, you're not wearing armor? Fantastic. You can put on stone skin. You can have mirror image. You can put on a helmet. You can do protection from magical weapons. You protection from magical energy, improved invisibility, and then you can just have a fun time. And not only that, you can cast those spells and then put on armor and then rush into combat and just wail on opponents. Great. Fantastic. You're going to do great. Fighter Illusionists are really good. Next up, I put Fighter Druid multiclass. Jaheira is a better companion than Cerned. Jaheira is a better companion. Yes, she is a better companion than Faldorn. I know that a lot of people love Faldorn because she can cast Insect Plague. I know it's an insanely powerful spell. I get that. I get it. That being said, I would much rather have a character who can consistently hit opponents, consistently use a lot of different weapons, consistently wear good armor, consistently do all the fighter things, and use druid abilities. It's a matter of consistency, and fighter druid, really, Jaheira loses very little from tossing on fighter, except for the fact that she is multi-classed, and in order to make sure that she was at the appropriate level, they had to enhance and put more XP into her initial level 1 build at the start of the game. That's fine. I still think that Jaheira is a good companion because she has that combination. And I think that if you are just playing as a druid, you're still a very powerful character. You can still cast really devastating spells, but you are limited by that early game. Jaheira is not limited by that early game. Early game, she's pretty much a healer. Okay, fine. You need a lot of healing in the early game to make sure you don't die. Later on, she'll get Call Lightning. Later on, she'll get Iron Skins. She'll do what you need her to do later on. For the consistency, Fighter Druid multiclass is really, really good, and you don't lose much at all. All right, next up, I'm putting the Fighter Mage multiclass. Works very similarly to the Fighter Illusionist multiclass, except instead of being a gnome, you're being an elf. Okay, technically I think you could be a half elf, but why would you do that? When being an elf, you get the bonuses to swords and bows, you get massive resistance to sleep and charm, and by being a mage instead of illusionist, yes, you have one fewer spell per level, but you also have all of the access to all spells, including necromancy. I think that the fighter mage is very good. They are not game-breaking by any means, but they have a lot of power to them, and I enjoy them. Combined with being an elf and getting the advantages of being an elf, I think that's pretty good. So I like fighter mages. They're among the better use of the fighter part of a multi-class. However, if you want to have a mage multi-class that is really good, a mage thief multi-class, oh, delicious. Okay, so let's talk about how you get traps, thief skills, arcane magic, backstabs, yada, yada, yada. We get all of that. Woot, wonderful, fantastic. Listen, the real reason you're playing as a mage thief multi-class is you get that solo experience. Let me talk to you about experience for a moment. You managed to survive Baldur's Gate 1. Congratulations. You've made it through Chateau de Irenicus. You're outside. M1 gets nabbed. You drop Minsk, Jaheira, and Yoshimo from the party. You send them over to the Copper Coronet or wherever Jaheira goes, right? You're by yourself. Congratulations. Now you are in the City of Coin. You have the opportunity to steal as much as you want. You have the opportunity to sneak around as much as you want. You get 5,000 gold pieces. You can go over to get your magic license, or just cast spells inside and then wander around the city and save yourself the cash. You can do anything that's not nailed. You can grab anything that's not nailed down. You can access every lock, every trap, every spell scroll that's not nailed down. And you can get not only fabulously wealthy, but you can get a boat ton of experience just doing solo stuff. The XP rewards that you get from lockpicking, spell scribing, disarming traps is huge for a solo character. This leads to a character getting up to 1.25 million XP very, very, very quickly. That gets you up to level 11 for a mage and level 12 for a thief. That allows your character to pick up new companions at their top XP recruiting point. If you really wanted to, and you knew what you were doing, you could solo as a mage thief. I wouldn't say it's easy, because there's a lot of summoning, and you have to rely on a lot of summoning. You'd have to rely on a lot of praying that your opponents don't cast Death Spell. That being said, at level 11, level 12, for just about any class, you can do it. It's not going to be easy, Or you could pick up a party, and now you are not only the utility utility player, you are also one of the casters. And if you pick up another wizard along with you, congratulations, you got 2 wizards casting a ton of different types of spells. You can diversify, or you can hammer down on just buffing spells or just damage spells and have the other guy doing the buffing spells or damage spells. It's fantastic. I love the Mage Thief multiclass almost as much as I love the Illusionist Thief multiclass. Think about like a thief for a moment, right? A thief would like kill themselves over to have the illusionist abilities, right? So thematically, this makes all the sense in the world. Now you can gain all of the XP that you wanted to get as a Mage Thief, and on top of that, you get you're now a gnome, so now you're protected. You have a little extra safety against spells and wands, and that's really good. Now, you guys, I hope you guys watched my Uriel run. Uriel was a gnome illusionist thief he was my first character on these playthroughs, on these hardcore playthroughs that got to the point of reaching HLAs. He died right afterwards, because he went around a corner and it was a blind corner and there's a lich ready to cast, a chain contingency of a spell that obliterated him. That being said, he was pretty awesome. Jan has the market cornered on this, but there's no reason why you can't roll up a gnome mage illusionist thief and completely rock it. I think that you are in for a really, really, really good time if you play as an illusionist thief. They are probably my favorite multi-class that I can think of. They are phenomenal, a whole lot of fun, the ultimate utility class, really. Just absolutely wonderful. All right, we've hit the cream of the crop, the S tier of the classes. From this point on, you have full range to decide which of these you like the best. I can tell you which ones I love the most. There are some favorites that you're going to see that I put at a different ranking, right? There are others that I consider to be strongest. These are the ones I consider to be the strongest builds in the game. These are classes that are pretty much superior to everything else below in some way or some fashion. This is where my opinion and yours are definitely going to differ at some point, right? When you are watching this video and you're going to see that one of these is ranked at the 8th spot versus being the 3rd spot, right? Don't focus on that. Just focus on the fact that it's almost clear that these are like just all interchangeable in the top 10, okay? This is where your comments below are going to feed me so much joy, because you're going to be like, how dare you not put this class in the S tier, blah, 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 Wild Mage, Kensai. That I think you guys are going to, I think this is going to be really enjoyable for you guys to watch. So, here we go. Top of the S tier. Now, the first one, I told you about how I think Thief to Mage dual class is really good. It's A tier. It's a solid A tier. I think there's one particular kit that does it well, and it's the Bounty Hunter to Mage dual class. Yes, I think this is better than the. I think this is maybe better than the Assassin to Mage dual class or the Shadow Hunter to dual class, Shadow Dancer to dual class. And I'll tell you the reason why. Remember that issue that a lot of you have about the Bounty Hunter, about how they lose the special traps. How they lose the special damaging traps after level 15. Well, guess what? If you dual class the mage earlier, like level 9 or level 13, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. You just cast the spell. You just get the trap at the highest damage capability, and then you switch to mage, and you get to cast all the spells you want to cast. And you're really, 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 really good thief who has really good traps. Phenomenal good traps. Thieving weapons, thief's skill points. Really, I just think that you are set up to. This is the way to do a thief to mage dual class. Not only that, but there's no one else that overlaps that. Yoshimo can't do this. Not that I would ever want to dual class him anyway, but he doesn't really do this. Emowyn and Nalia are just start as thieves and they dual class to mage as normal. I think that's that to me, I think that works very nicely. It's an A tier. I just think the Bounty Hunter just gets so good when they can dual class to being a mage, especially before they lose that strategic point of the damaging traps becoming purely control traps. So that's where I put them there. Bounty Hunter. Sorry. What was I going to say? I was going to say Dwarven Defender is next. Dwarven Defender. Yeah, the best physical tank in the game. I don't know why I said Bounty Hunter there, because I was talking about Bounty Hunters. Okay. Sorry, Dwarven Defenders, right? Dwarven Defenders have more HP, natural saves, physical damage reduction than any other kit or class in this game. They have better saves due to being a dwarf. That is a great start. Then you get the physical resistances up to 20% at level 20. There's no buttons that are clicked. There's no special things. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, barbarians get the same thing. Here's the deal. They get their defensive stance, granting them an additional 50% to physical damage reduction and an additional bonus against bonus for their saves. Now, they are a phenomenal tank. Add in items like Defender of East Haven, and that's an additional physical 20%. They are now at 90% physical resistance. 90%. Now, to alleviate the movement issue, which you really can't do, but you can position them to a spot where they will kind of own their little section of the battle, right? You thrust them at the front of the combat, maybe with Boots of Speed or Oil of Speed or Haste, and then activate, once they're in the spot where you want them to be, you activate Defensive Stance, and when your dwarf is in melee, use them to go to town on while your assassins or your fighters with Grand Mastery or your arcane casters, they all do the damage, right? Your Dwarven Defender will be fine. He will be fine. He or she will just do amazing work, right? Alternatively, if you want to get some real damage in, you go with the Archer. We all know that the Archer is going to be the king of ranged damage per second, right? They are the dangerous character at the distance. I want to compare them for a moment to Kensai. Now, compare them to them. They can wear studded armor and a helmet. A Kensai can't. An Archer gets multiple ranged attacks per round and a huge amount of scalable damage, while Kensai is stuck mostly in melee without a helmet or any means of zipping around the battlefield while staying in combat. The cult shot ability it's not amazing, but it's nice and scales okay. So compared to Kai, I would take Kai over it, but whatever. The Archer is just the ranged combat king. If you're introducing your kid or your girlfriend or your grandpa to Baldur's Gate, have them play as an Archer. Have them play as an Archer. I would say the biggest thing I would say for that is have them use either crossbows or short bows, because Firetooth or the short bow of Gessen is going to be your best bet for the best damage and the best kind of utility for a bowed weapon. All right, next in this ranking is Cavalier. The Cavalier, I argue, is the best paladin in the game. They lose the use of missile weapons. Okay, that's not a problem. First off, they can still use Azure Edge. Azure Edge is a ranged throwing axe. It does exactly the same thing that any other ranged weapon does. You could put 2 points into it and take undead out very, very, very quickly. They also get a lot of natural resistances and a lot of immunities that just come right at level 1. They get resistances to fire and acid right at level 1. They have immunity to poison, immunity to fear, immunity to charm throughout all of the game. You can take your Cavalier in Baldur's Gate 1, walk into Cloakwood Forest, have somebody disarm the traps, and then fight every single spider with no issues. You can have them in Baldur's Gate 2 go toe-to-toe with mummies or the mutated spiders in Sendai's Enclave. They can walk into Cloud Kills with no issues. unless I think they can die if they are level 6 and under, but even at that point, if they're over level 6, they're not taking any damage, right? Cavalier, when a Cavalier stacks items, they stack Armor of Faith because they can cast divine spells. Wearable armor with those resistances and the elemental damage resistances, they could stack up and make themselves immune to fire and acid all day. They get big benefits. Well, okay, I wouldn't call it even a big benefit against demons and dragons. It's cool. It's plus 3 Thaco and plus 3 damage. Okay, it's not game shattering, but it's nice. If I'm fighting against demons and dragons, you sure bet I want to have every little advantage I can get against those critters. If I play as a Cavalier, I feel significantly beefier than I have any right to be, and I feel like I can genuinely take over the world to give it a rose and then saunter off into the sunset. It's just a feeling I get whenever I play the Cavalier, but it just works. It's just such it's a perfectly designed class for what you intend it to be. Frontline person going in and hitting evil squarely in the face with a mailed gauntlet over and over and over and over and over again until it's dead. I mean, it hits harder in melee and does more things in melee than what other classes should have any right to be, and has more immunities to a lot of things. Okay, fine. Does it do the same damage potential as a Kensai? No, it doesn't. Okay. Does it do the same damage or even ability as a fighter? No, it doesn't. But you know what? It's also never going to get stuck getting poisoned and have to use tons of antidotes to make sure it doesn't die. So, you decide. I think Cavalier is the best paladin that you can get in this game, and it's well worth it. Next is a sorcerer. Now, I know a lot of folks, like me, like sorcerers over wizards, and there's a few reasons for this. First and foremost, as a start, they have far fewer restrictions on what ability scores they need. They literally need no specific ability score to cast their spells. They need none. The only things that they need are physical abilities to make sure they don't die. Dexterity and Constitution. That's it. You can have Charisma of poop. You can have Wisdom of poop. You can have Intelligence of poop. You can have Strength of poop. I wouldn't have anything poop because I don't like playing that way, but you aren't restricted at all. That's just the start. Sorcerers have tactical versatility versus wizards' strategic versatility. A wizard will be able to learn a lot of different spells in their spell book, so they can strategically plan out what exact spells they're going to want for every big fight. It's great, especially if you know exactly what you're going to face in every fight, and you have the flexibility to reload if a spell doesn't work. However, there are those instances where you cast a spell, you're in the middle of a big fight, and right as you're about to cast a spell, you take an arrow that goes straight through and disrupts your mage. You waste a spell. Your strategic plan went to poop. That sucks. When that happens, it sucks. And a wizard has no answer for that, other than try to beef up your character so that they don't take the arrow. Okay, that's more spell casting you have to do. That's more slots you have to prepare to make sure that doesn't happen. A wizard will certainly have lots and lots and lots of options, but they're stuck with casting the spells that are specific for that circumstance. Whereas a sorcerer, your goal is to choose very powerful spells that are going to be cast multiple times, to make sure if one casting is not enough, you can cast it multiple times. If you need multiple castings of web, you can get web off multiple times. Have 2 or 3 webs in one area, therefore making it really hard to resist a specific area of getting stuck. And then you have your guy with free action waltz on in and beat the bejesus out of everything that's stuck there, getting automatic hits on them. Okay? You can have multiple castings of Stone Skin in case your Stone Skin goes down due to somebody casting a Breach or a Ruby Ray. Multiple castings of Horde Wilting to make sure that your opponents truly get slurped up like a Soviet lake. You have so much tactical versatility as a sorcerer. If you know what spells are available to you, and you know that they're going to be useful in multiple circumstances, you can have a sorcerer just have so much power. And really, I think that a sorcerer is going to be in a very, very, very good spot from the early game to the late game, as long as you're picking spells that make sense. You don't want to waste your spell slots or spell choices on spells that you're never going to cast, except for that one specific time. Find familiar, I'm looking at you. Use the scroll. Don't try casting it. don't use it and then lose it. Okay? That's silly. Pick spells that are going to scale up with you. Okay? When you do that, amazing. So sorcerers, they are fantastic arcane casters, tactical masters of the battlefield. The fighter or Kensai dual classing to anything. I say this specifically a fighter or a Kensai dual classing. I put them together because you're doing slightly different things for the end result being about the same. I can say a Kensai mage dual class might be more powerful than a fighter cleric dual class, or you might prefer mages to clerics or thieves, right? It all depends on what you might need for a particular situation and how you're building a character. But with that said, you're gonna still be all of these things kind of balance each other out. They balance themselves out because they're going to basically determine you're basically either using a Kensai and having something like stone scan and mirror images and all sorts of stuff for days and being able to protect yourself against those critical hits that might come in, or maybe you're a fighter cleric just like Anomen. Anomen's one of the best companions, arguably the best companion in Baldur's Gate 2, because he switched and became a really powerful fighter cleric dual class. Really, really, really good combo. You have so much flexibility. There is nothing you lose from starting as a fighter and becoming something else. You might lose a little bit from being a Kensai and dual classing, but then again, you have so much that can make up for those losses that I put them about at the same point. It just depends on how you want to play the game. And really, it is one of the best builds you can do in this game. So fighter or Kensai dual classing to anybody, it's a little bit of a cop-out, but it just makes everything so much stronger. Okay, so we talked about how to make everything beefier. Now let's talk about the best thief in the game, and that is a Shadow Dancer. Shadow Dancer is without a doubt the best thief in the game, bar none. They lose traps. That sucks. They only get 20 points per level up, and they only get 30 points at the beginning of the game. That also kind of sucks. I'm not going to sugarcoat either of those things, but the Shadow Dancer does the one thing that no other character, no other thief can do. They get an oh poop button, they click on it, and they get out of combat. If their thieving is ability, if their hiding ability is high enough, because they have hide in plain sight, they can hide right away, not worry about anything. Is their backstab as good as an assassin? No, but a ×4 multiplier ain't too shabby. So you're not picking a Shadow Dancer because they're going to be the most extreme damage dealing character or they don't the greatest traps. You're picking them so that they can get in and out of combat super fast, and they get really cool abilities, right? Shadow Twin, Shadow Step, all of those are really neat abilities that even wizards can't use. So I would say, if your thief goes invisible, and then gets caught in the true sight, Shadow Dancers can very easily get right back into invisibility with no problem. Other thieves have to use a potion to do that, and that uses resources, and that's not good because resource management is a big part of this game. Shadow Dancers doing a lot of the stuff and doing it so easily that over and over and over again, I have had points where I had a Shadow Dancer who was coming back from the Cloakwood Mines. His entire party was killed except for him. He managed to survive against Devayorn by the good graces of the heavens above. And he got caught by the Amazons, this group of bounty hunters, and was able to just, without that high of a bonus to backstabs or anything, using potions of blowing up stuff and bows and arrows, was able to pick off all 4 of them and get their stuff and get enough money to resurrect the rest of the party. That's really good stuff. Like, that's very, very, very powerful. So Shadow Dancers can do some amazing work, and they only get stronger as they get higher up in level. Truly phenomenal thieves. And for the next, pardon me as I sip on your tears, crying over the fact that the Kensai didn't make the S tier. No, the Berserker is the best fighter. I'm not sorry. It's not like you'll have much to worry about since your head will be caved in if you're playing as a Kensai. So, Berserkers have no limitations on their items. They can still use ranged weapons if they want to. Not as good as anyone who isn't a thief or a cleric. Okay, big deal. Most of the time you're going to be in melee anyway. Or using axes, throwing axes, or throwing daggers. It's fine. Like other fighter kits, a Berserker can use any armor, weapons, shields, helmets, boots, bracers. They grant major elemental or physical resistances. Helps them live longer. Berserker's enrage ability grants no real disadvantages, and only it does have a little wind down period, but because it lasts longer, most of the time I've used a Berserker and I've activated their enrage ability, it results in them staying enraged longer than the fight exists. Okay? What happens when they use that enrage ability? First off, they have no disadvantages when they're enraged. But they do get immunities to charm, confusion, fear, feeble mind, hold, imprisonment, maze, sleep, and level drain. They get a bonus to hit, bonus to damage, and bonus to armor class. So, I hear the consistent thing that I hear from Kensai. A Kensai will out damage a Berserker. I'll give you that. But let's compare. Let's make the comparison. A Berserker at level 15 who has Grand Mastery in Flails is hitting with both the Flail of the Ages and Defender of Easthaven, one in each hand, has the Gauntlets of Extraordinary Specialization, and is using Valor's Helm to create a second version of the Berserker who is also enraged and are ready to smack down the opponent. Who's going to do more with damage? Him? Or Kensai that died at level 3 because they had their head cut off by a gnoll? Or Kensai that died at level 7 because they went toe-to-toe with Lars and the Blushing Mermaid in Chapter 5 and got their head caved in? Or Kensai who died at level 9 because some thug in Athkatla snuck up and stabbed them in the back for a critical hit in the back of the skull, just basically severing their spine. Or Kensai that got imprisoned at level 13 against Kangax because their protection spells wore off and they got dispelled and your Kensai went out swinging. Fun fact, you can't win the game if your character dies. Unless you're playing with reloads, which is totally fine. If you play with reloads, cool. Okay. I'm just saying that if you want to stay alive and outlast your enemies, a Berserker does that. Kensai will hit really hard, but they die very, very quickly. You can win the game over and over again by reloading. That's the way I would argue 90% of us play. That's great. That's awesome. Hell, I will do that. If I need to take a break and I'm just like, okay, enough with the reload, no reloads, just get me a good story playthrough, crank up the difficulty, let's do this, and reload over and over again, I'll do that, or I'll do a Wild Mage. Cool. But a Berserker will outlast so much that would kill a Kensai so quickly. That's why they are S tier, and Kensai is A tier. Alright, enough talking about hitting things. Let's talk about casting things. I miss Valeris. I miss him so much. It's been a month. I still miss him. I miss him so much. Now, you could say that Dragon Disciples and Sorcerers are kind of interchangeable. They're both S tier. They're both S tier casters. This is kind of a personal preference. I think Dragon Disciples, in case you can't tell, I favor survivability as like a really high factor, and Dragon Disciples just a little more survivable, right? They get more HP. They get natural resistances, including a 100% resistance to fire. You pop on anything, give them anything that gives them additional resistance to that, they are not getting healed by fire. And I doubted that when I first heard that. I was like, come on, that's such a stupid mechanic. No, it's real. it's straight up as real. You can go into the fire giant location with your dragon disciple who has 121 fire resistance, stand over the lava and heal up to full. That stuff happens, and it's so awesome. It's so cool. I have to say, I have to tell a little bit about Valeris and what happened. He was so insanely powerful. Valeris bit the dust because I did have one fewer casting than a sorcerer. So if you want to say a sorcerer has more casting ability because of that one extra casting per day, and that makes the difference, cool. I totally accept that. And in fact, the fact that he didn't have, he had one fewer casting of wish than what I may have needed in order to succeed. Maybe that might mean that Valeris may have outlived that situation. It also is the fact that on SCS, a Balzagal is immune to time stop. So when M-Wing casts time stop, everybody's frozen except for her and a Balzagal. And a Balzagal just gobbled up my entire party. Gobbled everybody up. So regardless, the last time I'm making that mistake. And regardless, Dragon Disciple is my favorite pure casting class. Answered the call perfectly for creating a tough as nails caster who was able to be in the middle line. I'm not going to say he was at the front line. He was at the middle line where defending my back line, casting spells for days. So insanely powerful. I'm bummed that he died. He got so far. And man, just Dragon Disciples to me are the best caster in this game. Okay, so we've gotten to the top, and you probably predicted what it is. It's the Berserker when they're dual classing to anybody. They are, by far, the greatest class build in the game. You're talking about an astonishingly powerful build. Most of the gurus that play Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition will tell you that Berserker Mages, or the Berserker Mage, as I like to call them, are the most powerful class build in the game. I think I probably agree with them. I would say that if you don't like casting arcane spells, if you want to rely on other casters to cast things while you use thieving abilities, or maybe you're a big fan of divine spells, then Berserker's dual classing to anything else, I think works just as well. I wouldn't sleep on any of the other options. A Berserker Thief can use any item, set traps, do all the combat utility, all the stuff, and give the backstabs while berserking, and therefore when they pop out of stealth, they are now an enraged berserker who is having all that combat potential and beating the bejesus out of whatever they're beating, and not afraid to get imprisoned, level drained, stunned. All that's fine. Berserker clerics get all of the benefits of a fighter cleric, and they get to go into berserk. Berserker Mage. Berserker Mages get all of the Stone Skin and Mirror Image, all those good defensive spells, while also being immune to level drain and imprisonment. No mage spell will protect you against those. So I just see, getting the Enrage ability activated just so much. Now, I have heard one interesting comment to say that it's kind of a stupid thing for a Berserker Mage to be able to cast spells when they are enraged. That is a very fair that's a very fair kind of commentary, and I actually kind of get that. However, I would say that if you are, let's say, playing as a Berserker Mage, and you perceive Enrage to be kind of a hyper-focus on what you are doing, then yeah, maybe casting spells is possible. I don't know. I'm just saying that there's a different way to interpret it, going into Enrage, whatever. But whether you are Berserker dual classing to a Thief, a Mage, a Cleric, or a Druid, starting at level 1 as a Berserker, going 9 levels or 13 levels, and then dual classing, you will not be disappointed. You will have a fantastic time in playing this game. And that's that. It's been a long video, and again, please leave your comments below. Feel free to complain about me not putting the Kensai at S tier, or the Druid at S tier, or the Jester not being at S tier, or the Kensai not being at S tier. I live for your disappointment. I live for your accolades. I live for you telling me how much of an idiot I am. I absolutely love it. For the rest of you who are at some level of sanity and understand that a lot of this list are based off experiences that I may have had or you may have had, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment below if I did miss something. There was a lot that I didn't comment specifically on, so if you have specific questions or if you have clarity, I am not going to be offended. If you are like, oh, he didn't mention that the Undead Hunter could do this, or that the Cleric could do this, or that the Stalker could do this, I am not offended at all. Please leave a comment below. I'll probably give you a thanks for pointing that out. If I wrote this over the course of a week to kind of correct any, silly mistakes that I may have missed or, whatever. And I figure I'm going to kind of let this video exist for a few years, as long as, we're all still here in 2029 or 2030. I might release another version of it. Don't know. But you know what? I'm sure that the rankings will be still a little bit different regarding that. So until then, please subscribe. And check out my other videos where I play Baldur's Gate and I play other CRPGs. And until next time, take care and good luck. We're all counting on you.